Hello and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where we go through every book in Dragonlance, a couple of chapters at a time. Honestly, I don't know how much every book in Dragonlance we're going through, but right now we are deep in Dragons of Winternight. I'm your host, Shivam, and with me as always is my co-host, John. Hi, John.
Good morning.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe it's ambitious to say every Dragonlance novel. There's a lot of them. And if we keep at this kind of pace, we're never going to get there. But at the very least, we're definitely going to go through Chronicles and Legends because I'm having fun and you're having fun and the audience is having fun.
Preview for listeners is I have been thinking about this. And what I think is mainline books will get this kind of treatment. And if we ever get out of mainline books,
we can do them just like
other books will get an episode or 2 episodes on a book where we just talk about what our thoughts were and what the summary was. And it's not as in-depth, but we do cover it. We're a ways away from that right now.
When I think about it, like the Dragonlance Chronicles and Legends deserves like a full, exegesis type of thing. But some of these books are just fun and short and don't really need to have like a ton of effort put into them.
And I think for a lot of them, and you're the expert on this, I haven't read that many of them, but they don't seem to do a lot of character growth or story progression. They're kind of like, this is a fun, zany adventure that so-and-so had.
That's a lot of it.
Or this is setting up the person that you will recognize once you start some of the prequel books. Flint the King is going to kind of set up why he is the way he is once you meet him in Autumn Twilight.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of that because it depends. There's 200 novels. There's multiple categories.
Yeah, dozens of authors, different ideas of what a character is, different inputs.
Oh boy, are there.
There's no canon version of, Tanis. There's Tracy's version of Tanis, and then there's Margaret's version of Tanis, and then there's all the other authors who decided to put a spin on Tanis. And I think every person in their head creates kind of a mishmash of all that and says, that's Tanis.
It's really complicated.
Last time, they escaped Tarsus. The groups permanently separated. And I have my 2 lists here now of who is in which group. While we talked last month, the module goes to the south. We are going to the east to Sylvanesti with Tanis, Caramon, Raistlin, Tika, Riverwind, and Goldmoon.
And Alana Starbreeze. And
Chapter 8 ended with a big info dump on the dragon orbs and how Tanis and them could get a hold of one.
So we have been now we are moving from the winter night portion of it to the spring dawning, or at least the spring dawning set of the modules, because the modules they were split up, like we discussed last time. They were split up so that 3/3 of the trilogy, Winter Night follows Lorana and crew going down into Ice Reach and friends, and then the spring dawning half, the final third of it, follows the crew that goes to Sylvanesti, and then they reconcile at the end, and the 2 parties meet up, take on the final adventure. That's not how the novels went. The novels had the luxury of being able to tell both stories simultaneously because of the fact that you don't have to worry about confusing your players.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have a gigantic party and you don't need to worry about, okay, you guys come this week and you guys come next week. Here, the story can just tell you the story split in half. That made the modules a little bit tricky to run, but I think it was better for the story overall to have the novels go first and then have the modules follow after. Because it also, people really liked the story. The second and third sets of modules came out after the novels had already been done, so they were following after them.
Got it. So everyone already knew the story by the time they were playing the story.
More or less, they knew this. But the thing is, the modules are still different enough. For instance, Fizban is Paladine in the novels. In the modules, there are a number of different characters who could become the Paladine role, depending on how you choose to do it and how the players play it.
Not necessarily Fizban. It could be a different character.
Not necessarily Fizban.
Interesting.
It could definitely have been like a number of different characters. They made it kind of tricksy and it's kind of neat. But here we are the crew has been fleeing Tarsus. They're continuing their journey and they're heading off to Sylvanesti.
Chapter 9, Sylvanesti, Enter the Dream.
Yeah, they had been being chased by dragons and the dragons seem to have just kind of, let them go for some reason.
Wonder why that is.
And this is where we get to have some dialogue about what it means to be Sylvanesti versus Qualinesti. All his life Tanis had heard of the wonder and beauty of the ancient elven home, though the elves of Qualinesti spoke of it without regret. They did not miss the lost wonders of Sylvanesti, for the wonders themselves have become symbols of the differences that had developed between the elven kin. The elves in Qualinesti lived in harmony with nature, developing and enhancing its beauty. They built their homes among the aspens, magically gilding the trunks with silver and gold. They built their dwellings of shimmering rose quartz and invited nature to dwell with them. The Sylvanesti, however, loved the uniqueness and diversity of all objects. Not seeing this uniqueness existing naturally, they reshaped nature to conform to their ideal. They had patience and they had time for what were centuries to elves whose lifespans were measured in hundreds of years. So they reformed entire forests, pruning and digging, forcing the trees and flowers into fantastic gardens of incredible beauty. So effectively, what we have here is kind of the difference between America and England, in the sense of, like, if you look at the way the English treated their gardens and stuff, they were very highly maintained, highly sculpted, with like all these, hedgerows and mazes and bushes carved into shapes of like fantastical beasts. And then the Americans who come to New England and try to impose this like structure onto the wilds of America eventually just give up and allow the like nature to take its course and build their cities to kind of evolve around the trees and stuff like that. And so you have this kind of like contrast between the high formality of a culture that hasn't been disturbed with the wildness of a culture that is evolving in a place that already kind of predates them. It's a really interesting philosophical difference.
Goes to a different point of view of what nature serves. And it's interesting because I would have thought the Sylvanesti would have been the more pure, preserving nature. That wouldn't have been an offshoot of them that also, like, that seems more conservative and traditional to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we actually shape nature. And like that seems more radical, but in the sense of interacting with other races, they're very conservative. It's this weird.
There's this weird idea because like the elves themselves are like, they're firstborn of the gods. They're the creations of the gods of good. And they're very much like, if anything, it's kind of like Sylvanesti elves fall very heavily on the law side of the spectrum. I wouldn't say the Qualinesti elves fall on the good side of the spectrum, but they're definitely more on the chaotic and benevolent, more so than like the legalistic and hyper-formal Sylvanesti.
Sylvanesti are lawful good.
Yes.
And we could say that Qualinesti is more chaotic neutral.
Qualinesti are more like lowercase lawful, uppercase good. It's weird though, because like even they're xenophobic, even they can't escape that. But the Sylvanesti themselves have this very like thousands of years of very formalized structure and arrogance and pride. And that's, I think, a lot of part of it, which is like, it's one of the major themes of Dragonlance, which is that anything pushed too far becomes dangerous, right? Like good pushed too far leads to like authoritarianism and the cataclysm. Evil pushed too far leads to like fascism and obviously genocide in the end times. The Sylvanesti are basically, we are, God's servants on earth. We are going to have control over the dominions of the world of creation, and it will match our grand design. It's more of like, we know what's best for you type of parenting.
Very patronizing.
Yeah.
We learn here, as Tanis is reflecting on the differences, we also learn that no Qualinesti had entered Sylvanesti since the Kinslayer Wars, and no human even before that.
That's super not true.
But as of the writing of this book, it was true.
The thing is, Qualinesti and Sylvanesti elves are not as separate as you think. Obviously, they have diplomats going back and forth over and over again. Now, the Sylvanesti did not allow humans into Sylvanost by and large. So I think it's safe to say for the most part, humans haven't been there, but it's like, come on. Come on.
Because it says here, all this was known to Tanis only through legend, of course, for none of the Qualinesti had set foot in their ancient home since the Kinslayer Wars. No human, it was believed, had been allowed in Sylvanesti since 100 years before that. He pokes her and is like, what about the stories of humans being trapped here forever? Are we at risk? And she's like, those stories are legend. We don't let people come here, but we don't go killing them and they don't get lost in mazes or anything. That's all legend.
Yeah, and we're definitely not keeping them.
We just make sure they can't come in. It's just
like we have no desire to let you in. Because the thing is, the Kinslayer War was literal tens of thousands of, not tens, but like literal thousands of years ago. And humans during the time of Ishtar, during the reign of Ishtar before the Cataclysm, there were definitely humans who were going back and forth to Sylvanesti. Certainly the clerics were. It's just that Qualinost was known for being open and allowing humans to settle there and allowing dwarves and allowing other races to kind of settle into the cities and become cosmopolitan. Sylvanesti was like, you guys can come to the trading quarter and then you can leave.
Yeah.
It's sort of like if you think about ancient China or Japan, where they were like, the Portuguese are allowed to go to this port and to stay within these neighborhoods, and that is the end of that.
So what about Sturm? Could Sturm come? She regrets telling him anything.
Oh yeah, dude, I love this. Like, not even Sturm, he couldn't ask helping Riley, nettled by her stinging tone, but he wasn't prepared for the answer. Alana twisted to face him, whipping around so fast her long black hair flailed his skin. So she just straight up whips around and smacks him in the face with her hair. And she's like, don't you dare talk about that guy to me now or ever. And Tan's like, but last night. And she's like, last night never happened. I was weak. I was frightened. I regret saying a damn word to you. Shut your filthy mouth before I cut you.
I regret telling you. I regret giving Sturm the jewel. I regret even going to Tarsus. She's like having some real, none of this should have happened.
Yeah, she's like, no, this is all bad. Everything is bad.
They're about to go into Sylvanesti. They can see the Tower of the Stars. And then the Griffins land and refuse to go any further. Not a great sign. Because it says here, Griffins fear little. So, and Ohana doesn't understand why they won't move forward, why they're afraid. They flew into the army of dragons. So, like, whatever's in Sylvanesti must be really bad.
And whatever's in there they want no part of, they are like, yo, you know what? Indeed, it seems hard to believe Sylvanesti had been under attack. There were no thin columns of campfire smoke. The land wasn't blackened and ruined. Tanis could see below him the green of the aspens gleaming in the sunlight. So it's like, it looks fine. But the Griffin's like, nope,
yeah,
nothing doing.
Griffin's like, army of dragons, no problem. Taking a step further into this place, not at all.
Not even a little bit. So they land and they refuse all the commands to fly further. And Ohana's like, well, what the hell? Okay, so they take their stuff and they pick up, and she's like, we're just going to have to walk. I guess that's just what happens. It's not far from here.
They gather all their supplies up, and the members of the party are like, where was there a siege? Like, there's not even signs of any combat. And Ohana's like, yeah, it was just like Tarsus, right? There were armies coming in. There were dragons flying around. There's no sign of any of that right now.
Yeah, and Karaman's like, it's a wild goose chase, man. Riverwind replies, he's like, if it's nothing more than that, we're fortunate. Why did she bring us here? Is this a trap? And Karaman's like, But then he looks at Raceland, and Raceland hasn't moved since they landed. He's just staring at the forest. That seems daunting and ominous. They put it as its own little paragraph. And Alana's like, maybe it worked. Maybe my dad was able to save everybody. Yay. We got to go. Tan's like, whoa, hang on. Hold the phone.
But she doesn't. She just bolts, goes across the river, and then they try to send Karaman and Riverwind to pursue. And then Tanis goes like, hey, what do you see? What is it, Raceland? Tanis asked. What do you sense? Nothing, Tanis, the mage replied. Tanis blinked. Nothing? He repeated, it is like an impenetrable fog, a blank wall. I see nothing, sense nothing. And then Tanis is like, come on, there's got to be something. And Raceland's like, believe me or not, I don't care, right? Raceland doesn't care. He's like, I told you, asked what I thought. This is what it is.
Not my problem, buddy.
Tanis goes, well, what would happen if, by chance,
yeah,
a low-level mage decided to use the dragon orb? And then Tanis spills the beans that were in confidence given to him.
Yeah.
Alana told him the night before, no one knows about this. My dad only ever told me we have a dragon orb.
Yeah. Alana told me during the test of the Tower of High Sorcery in Ishtar, a dragon orb spoke to Lorak, asking him to rescue her from impending disaster. And he obeyed it, Raceland asked, his voice as soft as the murmuring water of the ancient river. Yeah, he brought it to Sylvanesti. So this is the dragon orb of Ishtar, Raceland whispered. His eyes narrowed and he sighed a sigh of longing. I know nothing about the dragon orbs, he remarked, except what I told you, but I know this, half-elf. None of us are coming out of Sylvanesti unscathed, if we come out at all. Oh, Raceland, you harbinger of happiness.
What do you mean? What danger is there? What do you mean? But what danger? And he's like, what does it matter what I say? He's like, we have to go in regardless.
Yeah, it's like, deal with it, buddy. Race is such a douche here. He's so mean. He's like, look, obviously his magic eyes can see something messed up is happening because he's transfixed.
Yeah.
But he cannot figure it out because he's not high enough level to really understand what's going on.
I wonder, right? We know what happens, right? And we're going to tell the readers there's some sort of messed up dream.
Yes.
And I wonder, what does that look like to someone who sees time progressing forever, right?
Right.
Dreams don't exist outside of time. So, like, no wonder he's transfixed. I'm sure he has some messed up vision right now.
My idea has always been that just like in the later Fifth Age, what Raistlin is seeing is a shield. It's not necessarily like the vision itself of like the trees twisting and melting and stuff, as much as just like beyond this border is a very powerful magical like dome kind of controlling this zone, which is probably what the Griffins also sensed. And he's just like, yo, that is some insanely powerful magic. Something is happening there.
Yeah.
But like Raistlin is not clever. He's not learned enough. I wouldn't say he's not clever enough, but he's not learned enough to know what actually he's seeing.
And who is in this at this time of the world when the dragon orbs are lost? The only people, there's no one alive who has like been around mostly except for some elves. Like, who has ever seen?
I think the heads of the Tower of High Sorcery, like Parcelian and stuff, would know what this is because they know what the dragon orbs are and how to use them.
Yeah.
But your average wizard would probably be like, yo, there is something insanely powerful and out of the scope of my abilities. And then when Tanis is like, would a dragon orb, what do you think would happen to the dragon orb? And Race probably just immediately clicks into like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, damn, this is bad. Oh, boy. We're about to get into some crazy town.
And Tanis is like, we should get prepared. And Raislin's like, then prepare. But there's not much preparing they can do. They gather their stuff together. They don't know what they're getting into here. They cross the river just as it's getting dark, and the ferry that they're on falls apart as they step out of it, effectively trapping them in Sylvanesti.
Oh, I forgot about that.
There's a weird light reflecting from the river. It glows. It's the only kind of light outside of Raislin's staff.
Oh, man. Let me read this paragraph. So the ferry, an ornately carved flat-bottomed boat connected to both shores by an elaborate system of ropes and pulleys, seemed at first in good condition, but once they set foot on the board and began crossing, they discovered the ropes were rotting. The boat began to decay before their eyes. The river itself seemed to change. Reddish-brown water seeped through the hull, tainted with the faint smell of blood. That seems delightful.
Yeah. Twilight vanished at the same moment, and night swallowed them. Although the sky was clear without a cloud to mar its dark surface, there were no stars visible, neither the red nor the silver moon rose. The only light came from the river, which seemed to gleam with an unwholesome brilliance, like a ghoul. I didn't know ghouls glowed. You know, I didn't notice this before, but we just learned in the previous chapter that there is a dark moon, a black moon. And it says here, neither the red nor the silver moon rose. And so it's like, oh, maybe
Nuitari's hanging out here.
The moon that is shining right now is in the sky is Nuitari, and that's why it's doing all this weird stuff.
It's a little bit of the foreshadowing, right?
Yeah, and it fits in because we're going to see what happens to Raistlin here, right? His robes.
Oh, yeah. So Tanis says, hey, Raistlin, turn on your staff. And he does, but it's a cold, pale light, sort of like a fluorescent bulb in a basement. You know, it's just like it's stark and white, and it's illuminating basically his face and kind of this area around him. If you ever played Legend of Zelda, Link to the Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, there's a part where Link goes into the Lost Woods. And in the Lost Woods, the only place you can go is with the torch, and you have to kind of follow the wind of the torch. And the way that fog is just like directly surrounding him, you can't see more than like 3 inches in front of him, and every tree you look is twisted and gnarly looking. That is exactly what I pictured Sylvanesti looking like. You sit there, Raislin's like, we must enter the woods. And he says this in a shaking voice. If Raislin's voice is shaking, what good do we have?
Well, and they all just kind of stumble. No one's talking. It's so weird.
And they've got this fear aura. Fear crept up on them from the ground. Fear flowed through their limbs, turning their bowels to water, sapping the strength of heart and muscle, eating into their brain. Fear of what? There was nothing there, nothing to be afraid of. And yet all of them were more terrified of this nothing than they had been of anything before in their lives, which is to say there's some insanely crazy thing going on.
So they're all afraid. And man, I just have to read all of this. This is Tanis. He's like shaking. He staggered forward, not knowing if anyone followed, not caring. Behind him, he could hear Tika whimper and Goldmoon trying to pray through lips that would not form words. He heard Caramon shout for his brother to stop and Riverwind cry out in terror. But it didn't matter. He had to run. Get away from here. His only guidance was the light of Raistlin's staff. Skip a couple, and he runs to get to them trees. He can't reach Raistlin. And then it says, but the mage could not help. The last thing Tanis saw was the light from Raistlin's staff falling slowly to the ground, slowly and more slowly, released by the young man's limp, seemingly lifeless hand. And then there's like a break. And then we start a new paragraph. And it's the trees, the beautiful trees of Sylvanesti, trees fashioned and coaxed through centuries into groves of wonder and enchantment. All around Tanis were the trees. But these trees now turned upon their masters, becoming living groves of horror. A noxious green light filtered through the shivering leaves. Tanis stared about in horror.
First off, I love this whole section. I think the Sylvanesti dream is just one of the coolest, creepiest parts in early Dragonlance. And I think it was a real interesting way for Margaret and Tracy to stretch their like stylistic wings, because this is very different from the rest of the books, right? Like the rest of the books are very conventional Tolkien fantasy. This is where it gets into weird psychological horror.
Yeah.
And, or at least like 13-year-old appropriate psychological horror, right? Like it's definitely into mind melt territory where things get really weird and bizarre. And it's so iconic and memorable. And I'm really glad that they just spent so much time and made this such a focus of the story, because it's such a cool episode.
Talking about the trees, it's like the roots claw at the ground, the branches contorted, they weep blood.
The twisted branches of the tree were limbs of its spirit contorted in agony. What a metaphor.
Tanis says that they're driving him insane, the trees.
Yeah. He's just like currently lost in these big, huge woods. The trees are weeping blood. The leaves are kind of like flailing, rustling, and screaming. It's like you're in like horror town hell right now. He hears the Kender shriek in terror. He sees Tasselhoff pointing at some trees. Tasselhoff.
Yeah. Not only Tasselhoff, but Sturm, Laurana, Flint, they're all here in the forest with him.
Tanis, staring horrified at the trees, only eventually comprehended that Tasselhoff wasn't supposed to be here, and there was Sturm, ashen with fear, and Laurana weeping in despair, and Flint, his eyes wide and staring. Tanis embraced Laurana, and his arms encompassed flesh and blood, but he still knew that she was not there. Even as he held her, and the knowledge was terrifying. Oh, man. As he stood there in the grove that was like a prison of the damned, the horror increased. Oh, it's getting messed up. So we're here in this... Oh, man, wait a second. Animals bounded out from among the tormented trees and fell upon the companions. Tanis drew his sword to strike back, but the weapon shook in his trembling hand, and he was forced to avert his eyes, for the living animals themselves had been twisted and misshapen into hideous aspects of undying death. Riding among the misshapen beasts were legions of elven warriors, their skull-like features hideous to behold. No eyes glittered in the hollow sockets of their face, no flesh covered delicate bones of their hand. They rode among the companions with brightly burning swords that drew living blood. This is like a weird contrast to the Sla Mori episode early on, where they've got like the dead elven legions that surround Kithkanon. Also kind of calls back to the Pax Tharkus and the Darken Woods area. I don't know, there's a lot of just random ghouls, like legions of undead people hanging out in Elftown.
They're attacked, and then they notice that their weapons don't do anything. When they strike through them, the enemies, they just disappear. Raistlin's spells do nothing, but anytime they're scratched or hit or pierced, it draws blood.
Yeah.
I said in the last two episodes, wow, this book got dark, and I was wrong. This is where the book gets dark. Because Caramon is seriously wounded. Goldmoon can barely heal him. Her faith is failing. Raistlin is talking to someone who we can't see and no one seems to understand. There's an old deal and a new one.
Oh, man. So first off, by the way, that healing scene is so messed up, right? Like the dreadful wound closed, though blood still seeped from it. It's like, whoa, that doesn't happen with healing spells.
Yeah.
But Raistlin is suddenly like, his eyes are staring wide with disbelief. And he's like, I need your aid now as before. Our bargain remains. What? You asked for more? Name it. And then Caramon is just staring and wondering what the hell's happening. And he is suddenly like engulfed in terror.
No, Race, clutching at his brother in panic.
Race is listening and hearing a conversation no one else can hear. Closes his eyes, swallows as though he's drinking a bitter medicine, and bows his head and says, I accept. Caramon cried out in horror as he saw Raistlin's robes, the red robes that marked his neutrality in the world, began to deepen to crimson, then darken to a blood red, then darken more to black. Here we go, baby.
I accept this, Raistlin repeated more calmly, with the understanding that the future can be changed. What must we do?
Yeah. So Race here is the one person who understands that what he's seeing is not exactly what is happening and that they're caught in an illusion.
So who did he make this deal with?
This is foreshadowing Raceland's deal with Fiston Dantalus, the most powerful mage who ever lived, the
Yeah.
most evil person of all time, one of the guys who created the dragon orbs way back when, who has been around living as a lich for thousands of years.
The old deal is the one he made during his trials, correct?
Yes.
And then this is a new deal. I only asked if it was Fiston Dantalus. I thought it was, but it says here at the end, he asks, how do we get through the tower alive? And then he says, I'll be given what I need. Very well. Farewell then, if such a thing is possible for you on your dark journey. Like, Raceland seems to think that Fisty exists outside of him. And I have the feeling that Fiston Dantalus exists inside of him. And maybe Raceland doesn't know that.
Well, that's a real trick right there, isn't it? That's like one of the real core kind of ideas that's going on here. First off, so Fiston Dantalus in these stories, we've learned about him first off from the Night Blue spell books that Raceland got in Zaxxaroth. And we learned about him that he's like kind of this evil, incredibly powerful mage.
The greatest black mage.
Yeah, and frankly, one of the greatest human magic users of all time. He's been around for a very long time. He's seen through time, like it shows up in multiple different places. And his gimmick is that he finds young mages, drains their bodies, and inhabits them. His soul uses their bodies then as like a lich would to be their brand new shell. That's how he kind of stays immortal through time. But the deal we're talking about here is from Raceland's original test, where the test of the twins, where he became a full-fledged mage, right? He is fighting against dark elves and he's fighting against other people, and he is like being challenged to use his magic, and he's losing. Fisty comes to him and says, yo, I will keep you alive in your moment of desperation. I will keep you alive if you trade your soul to me. And Drace is like, I need to get out of this. And like a fireball comes to him and he's wrapped with this golden skin that ends up protecting him from the fire and becoming sort of a talisman. He makes this deal with this Lich Lord, with this evil mage. And it comes back a lot. And this time he's like, yo, you're neutral. I need you to take the next step. If you do, I will give you the power to survive this. And Ray's like, I need to live. I don't care about these things. Like, what use is the soul for someone who doesn't believe in a soul, right? Like, Raceland is so arrogant at this point that he believes that his self-control and his, willpower will allow him to resist and defeat Fiston Dantalus and like renege on the bargain that they've made, without realizing that Fisty had been here before 1,000 times over 1,000 of years, right?
When he says, oh, I understand that the future can be avoided, is that the future of him being basically chewed up by Fisty?
Basically, he is like, look, I will make this bargain here for this dream, take the black robes and everything, with the knowledge that I do not have to do this when we actually enter real time.
Ah, got it.
Basically, he's like, oh, this is supposed to be foretelling the future. I get it. Like, you're just showing us like illusions of what might happen. And I'm telling you, might is a loose enough word that I am willing to take that bargain with the intention of subverting it for my own needs later.
Got it. He's given unknown instructions, and then he's able to cast magic now, and it works.
Yeah, like, so Raceland reaches into his pouch and gets some rabbit fur and amber rod, the standard ingredients, material components needed for a lightning bolt. And he says the Indonesian words to cast lightning bolt, and shoots him out and zaps a whole bunch of these elven warriors. And now he is suddenly stronger, healthier, more aware, less fearful. He's definitely more confident.
Come to stand near me. The companions were astonished to hear Raceland speak, for the first time since his tests, in a normal voice. Hurry, he added, they will not attack now. They fear me.
Yeah, so no weird affectations, no whispers, no high-pitched voice. No, just this is what 20-something-year-old Raceland just sounds like.
So he's like, everyone come here.
And Sturm is like,
yeah. Sturm's like, of course not. I refuse to be protected by Raceland.
I always knew it would come to this, and I will die before I show up and stick with you, buddy. And with that, the knight turns and walks deeper into the forest.
And we learn what happens. Raceland gives us the little bit of, he's like, we are trapped in Lorak's nightmare. We're going to face visions of the future that can help or harm. You can die in this dream. And the only way out is when you no longer believe it is real.
Yeah.
And then Tanis asks, well, if that's the case, why are you in the dream?
Oh, yeah. Well, he's basically like, why can't we wake up? Because Lorak's belief in the dream is too strong and your belief in your life is too weak. When you're firmly convinced beyond a doubt that this is a dream, you return. And then Tannis like, if you're convinced, why aren't you leaving?
And he says, I choose to be in the dream.
Yeah, maybe I don't want to leave.
This comment is crazy. Tannis says, I don't understand. And Raistlin says, well, you will or you will die. In which case, it won't matter.
GG's, buddy.
That's how the chapter ends.
Yeah.
Perhaps, Raistlin said, smiling, I chose not to. I don't understand, Tannis cried in bitter frustration. You will, Raistlin predicted grimly, or you will die, in which case it won't matter.
Get wrecked.
End of chapter 9.
Man, Raistlin is just like, so right now, Raistlin has just made the devil's bargain, right? Like, he's like, I know that we're caught in some kind of weird magic. I don't know what it is. And the Lich comes to him and says, look, I will get you out of this. I will tell you what you need to know if you sacrifice yourself to me, if you change your robes, if you become my servant. And Raistlin's like, oh, so you're saying this hasn't happened and this is just a dream. Okay, I will file that away. Sure, I'll do whatever I need to do to get out of here right now, but I am not committing to nothing because I know that I can change this.
I think Fist and Dantalus lied to him because he says, oh, these are visions of the future, possible futures that might help or harm. But, none of these futures come true.
That's not, is it? We can talk about that in a second because that's not necessarily true. Some of these are definite foreshadowings of things that have happened.
They're foreshadowings, but everyone dies in this, and that's not true for all these people.
Not all of them are true.
Yeah.
Some of them are definitely true, and definitely like that's kind of like the authors are seeding the story here and giving you a bunch of paths to follow. It's like D&D. Like, hey, which of these is going to happen? Which of these isn't? And Raistlin, of course, taking the black robes is one of those big foreshadows. I don't want to get too far ahead, but if you look at the original cover for Dragons of Spring Dawning, you've got, let me just pull it up here. Okay, so if you look at the original cover of Dragon Spring Dawning, you've got Tika, Caramon, and Raistlin hanging out there. And they're hanging out underneath this big green dragon, which we'll talk about later. One of the things that people noticed a lot early on is that Raistlin is standing here leaning over, and the bottom half of his robes are getting darker and shadowier and black when you look at it, especially in print on the cover. And that was Larry Elmore basically foreshadowing where this story is going, of Raistlin's robes changing slowly into being...
Oh, interesting.
It's real tricky. And it's one of those like really cool kind of just moments of art foreshadowing where we're going from here.
In future editions of it, he just has the black robes.
Yeah, and that's like, that I always felt was just a little... It took away one of the really cool just ideas of this story. I thought that the original cover was just so much cooler because of that idea. And then when you look at the later version of Spring Dawning, and Raistlin's just out and out in the black robes, and it's like, oh, come on, man. That's not nearly as cool. Like, Stowicki did a great job, but it's just, you take away you undercut the story.
That also doesn't look like Tika in the cover now. There's no dragon. And then isn't that Kitty Yara standing in the back?
Yeah.
So it's a very different cover.
And in the second cover of it, it's Raistlin, Caramon, and Kitty Yara standing in front of the Tower of High Sorcery in Palanthas, which is like weird because that's Legends. That's not Spring Dawning. I mean, Spring Dawning does have like, it seems so weird. The thing is though, it was really cool. Like, I think the original Elmore art did a huge, like, just the way that they had shaded it made it seem so cool. I want to call out that we have a Patreon that you can support to help us pay to put it on this show, because both John and I have things to do, and this stuff gets expensive to host and edit after a while. But you can go to patreon.com/Chronicles of Dragonlance, I believe.
Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast /
Yeah, Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. And you can go there and support us. We would really appreciate it. And we are grateful to all of you who have supported us thus far.
Big shout out to the patrons, especially at the $5 level. Alexander Luis, Nicholas Campo, and Swardango. Thank you so much.
So here we are in Chapter 10, Waking Dreams, Future Visions. And that cool looking like lich like art on the cover, like all those ghouls and zombies.
Yeah, the skeletal evil elf spirits.
Yeah, and I love this right here. Like, ignoring the horrified stares of the companion, Raceland walked to his brother, who stood clutching his bleeding arm. I'll take care of him, Raceland said to Goldmoon, putting his own black-robed arm around his twin. No, Caramon gasped. You're not strong, and his voice died as it felt his brother's arm support him. I am strong enough now, Caramon, Raceland said gently, his very gentleness sending a shiver through the warrior's body. Lean on me, my brother.
Yeah.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah, I could see why that would make you scared. For the first time in his life, Caramon leaned on Raceland.
Mm.
The mage supported him as together they started walking through the hideous forest. And Caramon has all these questions like, what's happening? Why are there black robes? And
What's your voice?
Raceland just ignores him. He's just like, you know what? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's good.
He doesn't even respond. We just got to keep moving through the forest. We got to get to the tower.
Tower of the Stars.
It's wild because Caramon, he notices that as he bleeds out and weakens, his brother's getting stronger. This is the inverse of the current relationship.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also Raceland is doing to his brother what Fist and Dantalus is doing to him, right? You know, we inflict our own harms on the people we love.
Yeah, and it's also a real interesting discussion on his codependence, because Caramon's whole life has been caring for his brother and handling it, and now his brother's showing independence and able to deal with himself, and Caramon's like, wait, what is left for me then? This is not how this relationship works. If I don't have this, what do I have? You know? Tannis is like, it's a dream, and he yells at Sturm, and Sturm's like, bah, is this dreaming? And he's like, and it pulls his arrow out of his arm and everything. Tannis like, Raceland told us though, and Sturm's like, look at his robes, Tannis. He's a liar. Come on.
And then he's like, well, how are you in Sylvanesti then? And Sturm's like, maybe I was sent to help. Tannis realizes what's up. He's like, oh, Raceland seeks the orb. We have to get to it before Raceland does. If Raceland gets it, who knows what's going to happen?
Oh, yeah. Well, Raceland knows what's going to happen.
So it's Tannis and Sturm, and they're just fighting forever.
Yeah.
And they eventually reach the tower, and he trips on the way running towards it, and he's saved by a strange yet familiar warrior. They remove their helmet. It's Kitiara. Which I thought was weird. It's like, what is she doing here? Like, what attracted her to the dream?
That's a good question, because, like, you know, Sturm's crew, okay, the Star Jewel is there. It's a very powerful magic item that makes them think. So what is Kit's attraction here? Is it Tannis's id? Is his subconscious coming out and, like, bringing her? Or is it, like...
Is it her two half-brothers? Is it the mere fact...
Or is it the fact that she was part of the Companions originally?
Or is it the mere fact that she's riding two dragons who are nearby, right? And she's kind of swept up in this. I don't know.
It's weird. It's a weird moment.
It's foreshadowing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, once again, we're seeing Tannis and his relationship with Kitiara here. But as soon as we revealed that Kitiara, Sturm, and Tannis get to the tower, we cut to Riverwind. And oof.
Also, we didn't even talk about the tower itself. The tower, like, as we recalled in the first book, the Tower of the Suns in Qualinesti is coated in gold plates and shines very brightly like this glowing kind of center. And the Tower of the Stars is made out of pure white marble, glistens white, and it's like a skeletal finger clawing up from a grave type of thing. It's definitely in the idea of the Sylvanesti of everything is marble and white and pure. But yeah, so Riverwind. Riverwind fights alone, battling legions of undead elves, and then he hears a clear call. Raising his eyes, he sees Quayshu tribesmen. He cries out joyfully, but to his horror, he saw them turning their arrows on him.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, don't you recognize me? What's going on? No, man, you are the reason we died. It's your fault. The destruction of everything is your fault.
Yeah, you destroyed our village.
And Riverwind slumps to the ground, and he's like, forgive me, I didn't know.
Yeah, and then he died. And then we cut to Tika. While she was originally fighting elves, wraiths, they turn into draconians, and every time she's fighting, she starts bumping into other people, but like they're not really there,
and they're shoving her aside,
and then she panics, swinging mildly. She only stops when Wraithland's before her. He dismisses her, and then she accidentally kills Flint because she's swinging around. She's like in a panic.
Yeah, she's like, Flint lays dead at her feet, pierced by her own sword. And then it cuts to Flint, which is wild. Flint's like, I let him here. This is my responsibility as the eldest. I'll get them out. And he yells a challenge.
Go ahead and explain the Flint thing, and then I'll kind of just talk about what I think is kind of happening here.
Yeah, and so Flint tried forward only to find himself walking stiffly. Arthritis is kicking in, his palsy is kicking in, his breath is short. Oh, that's why the elves aren't attacking. They're letting old age finish me off.
Yeah.
As he realizes this, he feels his mind begin to wander, his vision blurs. He pats his pocket looking for his spectacles, and a shape in front of him, a familiar shape. Was it Tika? Without his glasses, he couldn't. Boom.
Kind of feel like these people are all in their own dream.
Yeah.
Of things that are happening, but they're kind of overlapping, like a Venn diagram.
Exactly. Like
where there's slight, their own things are happening, right? Because Tika bumps into a bunch of people, but they're actually nowhere near her, right? She never bumped into Raceland. Raceland's already at the tower.
Yeah.
She didn't bump into any of the other people, but like, did she really bump into Flint? Maybe. We don't know. Maybe she bumped into what she thought was Flint or Flint. Like, it's interesting how they overlap but are separate.
Yeah. They're all in their own. They're all trapped in their own individual dreams. Kind of like there's some places where they overlap and they share a shared hallucination. But the trick here is like, okay, we've now been shown two different ways that Flint has died, right? Like, does he get stabbed by his partner or does he die from, heart troubles in old age? That is a thing that gets answered in the next book. And it's really interesting.
Does Riverwind die by being killed by his tribe members?
Or is it just his guilt racking him?
Yeah. Cut to Gold Moon, and she's alone. And she's just wandering endlessly until she hears Riverwind's voice, and then she runs to him, and he's dead. And then when she tries to heal him, nothing happens. And all these doubts start coming out. How can I not doubt when the world was so awful? And please don't do this. And punish me and not Riverwind for them.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just sitting there pleading with her goddess.
And nothing answers.
Yeah, not noticing as all the wraiths surround her.
This is definitely preying upon everybody's doubts, insecurities, and fears. Tika's fear is that she's a useless fighter that everybody else looks down on and that she's going to end up hurting herself and her friends. Flint's doubt that he is too old for this and that he's just holding everybody back. Riverwind is like, oh no, I failed my people. Goldmoon's like, I'm letting my faith down with my doubts. And then we go to Taz. And he's like, look at this. They who feed off fear feel no fear in his small body.
He wanders through the forest for an entire day, right? Nothing attacked him. They fed off fear, and Taz has none.
Yeah.
And then he finds the tower and Tika, and she's fighting people. Their backs against the door, and he's like, oh, I'll help you, right? If we just open this door, we'll be safe.
Exactly. And he's like, I should have this lock picked in seconds. And he goes, and then suddenly something bumps into him. And it's like, hey, be a little more careful. And then he turns around and Tika's dead at his feet. And he's like, wait, no, not Tika. Maybe she's only wounded. Maybe if we got her inside the tower, someone could help her. And then his hand shakes. He's like, I gotta hurry, Taz thought frantically. Why won't this open? It's so simple. Furious, he tore at the lock. He felt a small prick at his finger just as the lock clicked. The door to the tower swings open, but he stared at his finger where a tiny spot glistened. He looked back at the lock where a small golden needle sparkled. A simple lock, a simple trap. He sprung them both. And as the first effects of the poison surged with a terrible warmness through his body, he looked down to see he was too late. Tika was dead. There's Taz's fear, that he is not fast enough to save his friends, that he's not good enough to pick a lock, that he get distracted and die.
Is this the only time Taz ever has fear? Is in this dream?
This isn't fear, this is anxiety. He's not worried. He's just like, come on. He's like rushing.
Yeah.
It's not fear because he's not scared. He's rushing and he's hasty and he's anxious. I'm hitting a timer. I got to go. Like, I can do this. I know I can do this. Crap, I can't do this.
Okay. I was like, oh, maybe he's actually feeling what fear is here. But if you read it again, it says he doesn't have any fear and it's just anxiety. He has to hurry and it's tricking him up.
Yeah, he's just like in a rush. They winds him up, right? Like he doesn't feel fear, but he's just like, he gets sloppy.
Yeah. Then we skip back to Raceland and Karaman. It says that they fought all day, and Raceland's using all this magic, or with his will alone, he's keeping these enemies and the wraiths at bay.
Yeah. Raceland was kind and gentle and solicitous. Karaman was forced to stop frequently as the day waned. By twilight, it was all Karaman could do to drag one foot in front of the other, leaning upon his brother for support. As he grew weaker, Raceland grew stronger. So there's his fear, blatant and in the open.
I've got to rest, Race, he gasped. Put me down. Certainly, my brother, Raceland said gently. He helped Caramon lean against the pearl wall of the tower, then regarded his brother with cool, glittering eyes. Farewell, Caramon, he said. Caramon looked at his twin in disbelief. Within the shadow of the trees, the warrior could see the undead elves, who had followed them at a respectful distance, creep closer as they realized the mage who had warded them off was leaving. Wraith, you can't leave me here. I can't fight them. I don't have the strength. I need you. Perhaps, but you see, my brother, I no longer need you.
Ooh.
I have gained your strength. Now finally I am as I was meant to be, but for nature's cruel trick. One whole person. The way Raceland sees it is that his brother robbed him by being born of who he was supposed to be. What a dark, twisted way to understand having a twin brother.
Yeah, because Raceland looks at this and he's like, I was meant to be the better one. Why am I the weaker secondhand one here? Why have I been afflicted by all this stuff? And it's just his rage at his brother. He's just anger at his family. That is like the core source of all of his insecurity, all of his pain, and all of the selfish behavior that drives him. Is that he's like bitter and jealous and angry that he was stuck in this secondhand body while his brother gets to be beautiful and hale and strong. And he's forcing Caramon to like sit there and suffer. And Caramon is codependent. Caramon has to take care of his brother. That's been his task since he was born.
Yeah.
He's like, my entire goal is to make sure my brother lives. My brother doesn't need me anymore, is the most wounding thing you could say to him, because that takes the only purpose Caramon has ever had away.
Yep.
It is unbearably cruel. It's unbelievably cruel. And that is the seed of the Legends trilogy right there.
Well, and then Raceland leaves.
Oh, and Race doesn't just leave. He doesn't just leave, man.
Oh, no, he leaves Caramon outside the tower, stepping over the bodies of Tika and Taz as he enters. It's just like...
Yeah, and he turns and he's like, how does it feel to be weak and afraid, my brother? What a move! What a dick move! Oh my god. Raceland is just like turning the screws here, right? Like, it is unbelievably messed up.
Like, how much of this is actually Raceland? We don't know, right? How much of this is Caramon's dream and how much of this is Raceland's dream?
Oh yeah, but at the same time, the thing that makes it powerful is that Caramon knows Raceland would do that.
Yeah, he probably suspects it. Yeah, that's another worry that he has, is that his brother will abandon him if given the chance.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because they know from the test.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
From the very first pages of Autumn Twilight, we know that Raceland was forced as part of the test to kill Caramon, and Caramon had to watch it. Because Par-Salian, the mages, thought that, oh, this will make you guys, understand each other more and be better, and you'll have a healthier relationship. And instead, it just drove a spike into their bond, into Caramon's heart.
Caramon being who he is, he probably thought, well, maybe if I'm even more solicitous, he won't do this, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't caring for him enough.
And it turns out being patronizing, right? Like,
yeah, and it just made it worse.
Because in that test, Raceland's out of spells, he's running out of things, and Caramon breaks in and he's like, oh man, Race, here, hang on, let me get you out of this. And Raceland's like, no, you can't. If you help me during the test, I'll fail. And Caramon, out of nowhere, grabs a piece of amber and some fur and just like lightning bolts a thing. And Raceland stops and stares at him and is like, what the hell? How did you do that? It's like, oh, I've always been able to do this magic thing. I just didn't bother because I figured that was your thing. I didn't want to take it away from you.
Oh.
You seem so happy with the magic.
This is an inverse of that.
Yeah, this is from the original short story about the test.
Got it.
And Raceland just turns in full-blown rage and incinerates Caramon. And Caramon is just staring like from behind the glass mirror or whatever, watching this, going like, I would never do that. What the flying hell? Raceland, ever since then, has been like, oh, that the only way this can happen, the only way we can go forward is if I'm doing this by myself. I can't even trust you. And that's this scene right here is Raceland flipping that script on him and saying, now I'm the one who's helping you, and I'm going to leave you here.
Raceland goes into the tower, and then we cut to Sturm, Tanis, and Kitiara. They make it to the tower, and they find Caramon dying at the base of the tower. Poor Caramon, Kitiara whispered, bending down near him. Somehow I always guessed it would end this way. She was silent for a moment, then spoke softly. So my little Raceland has become truly powerful, she mused almost to herself, at the cost of your brother's life. Kitiara looked at Tanis as if perplexed at his meaning. Then shrugging, she glanced down at Caramon, who lay in a pool of his own blood. Poor kid, she said softly. I mean, I think we see a little bit about Kitiara there. Kitiara has more in common with Raistlin than she does with Caramon.
Well, I mean, Kitiara has always said her first great victory in battle was against death, keeping Raistlin alive. So she has always felt, an affinity. I mean, she loves both of her brothers. She's felt an affinity to Caramon because they're both warriors. She feels an affinity to Raistlin because they're both me against the worlds.
She's just more attracted to power the way Raistlin is.
She's 100% more attracted to power. We see in Brothers in Arms when we get Kitiara's story, which is that she is definitely all about what will get her the most power, what will give her the most freedom to do whatever she wants to do. And what she's learned is that power equals freedom, money equals freedom.
Yeah.
When you have the luxury of telling other people to do things, you can do whatever you want. And so she's looking here and she's like, look, Caramon's last words are like, protect Raistlin since I won't be there now. Watch over him. And Tan's like, are you kidding me? He left you to die. And Caramon's like, no, I sent him away. And it's like, no, dude, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Caramon's so caught up in that codependence that he can't even admit when it's no longer needed.
Yeah. He can't even admit that he got screwed.
And that he's no longer codependent. He can't even, it's worse to him to
be alone.
Better for him to die than to give up on his belief that he and his brother need each other.
Right. And it's like right there. That's when you're like, oh, look at this just utter, complete like dependency this guy's got going on. Kit says, I always guessed it would end this way. That's because she had watched their relationship. She'd watched them grow up. And she could see Raistlin seething the whole time. And Caramon just trying to be the kindly elder brother that he thinks he is. And
yeah,
he just isn't.
They find Tika in Taz's body. Tanis finds the ring he gave back to Laurana in Taz's pouch. And he slips it in his pocket. Sturm vows to kill Raistlin, which he's been doing since the first book, it feels like.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? You finally gave me a reason, buddy. That's all I've been asking for.
They keep going in.
Yeah.
They're in the tower. They make their way to a room with a sick green glow, the center of evil.
Yeah, I love this. Tracy Hickman was like, it's been pointed out to me that green in our books is almost always a sign of evil. I don't recall ever being attacked by a lawn in my youth, but I admit I find more evil in green than I do in blue or even red. I have no idea why. But yeah, so here we are. Everything is sickly green. Everything is evil. They see a malevolence radiating from the green light, beating upon their faces with the warmth of a perverted sun. What an image.
Laurana shows up. Oh, it's so good to see all you. And then she notices Kitiara.
Oh, man. Who is that?
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, that's the human woman Kit. The woman Tanis loved. Her face went white and then red. And Tanis like, oh, I did not need this. I don't want this discussion right now. I do not have time for this.
This is awkward. Can you think of a worse time to introduce your ex as you're going through an evil dream where all your friends are dying?
By the way, everybody's dead. Oh, yeah. Yeah, about us.
Before they get much longer, we're interrupted by the appearance of Cyan Bloodbane.
Cyan Bloodbane, my favorite dragon. Oh, one of my favorite dragons in all of Dragonlance. A huge, monstrous green dragon, incredibly old, incredibly powerful.
It says he's one of the largest dragons on Krynn, save for only the Great Red herself. Who is the Great Red?
The Great Red is the dragon that Ariakus, the leader of the evil dragons, rides, and also like
Got it.
Takhisis' granddaughter or something like that.
Okay, I was wondering if the Great Red herself was Takhisis, but no.
No, it's like actually just the biggest red dragon. Cyan is one of the great villains of Dragonlance. He does a lot here in this book. He shows up later because people love him, and he shows up again in the Fifth Age as a huge, huge, masterful like dragon overlord. Dude is cool, man.
Is this really him? Or we don't know. We never know. Did the Dragon Orb really sub in Cyan Bloodbane?
Yeah, yes, it did.
Okay.
But this is not Cyan.
Okay.
In the dream, it is the dream.
Got it.
Cyan is controlling the dream. He's like in charge of it. He's whispering into Lorak. There's one of the most famous paintings in all of Dragonlance. He's got Lorak with his hand on the dragon orb, and the green dragon is whispering into his ears.
Pondering his orb, and it went wrong.
Oh, yeah. Everything went bad.
Oh, no, wait. You're saying he tried to use the dragon orb to control the dragons, and the opposite happened. A dragon is controlling Lorak.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. I thought it was just the orb, but I see how the orb can be a conduit.
The famous painting, he's got like, Lorak with his eyes closed and his helm and there's cyan bloodblade is just wrapped around him and is just like talking to this guy, whispering evil into his ear. Because that's what like the green dragon kind of is like, just mind messing. One of the coolest things ever.
So they have to fight Cyan Bloodbane, but they can't because they're frozen by dragon fear.
Well, yeah, it turns out Cyan, very, very evil.
And then Raceland enters. That goes well. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so Raceland, Sturm is like, by all the gods, you will pay for your brother's life. And he forgets about the dragon, remembering only Karaman's lifeless body. The knight springs forward towards the mage, his sword raised. Raceland just stares at him coldly. Kill me, knight, and you doom yourself and the others to death, for through my magic and my magic alone will you be able to defeat Cyan Bloodbane. Raceland and Cyan have an interesting relationship later on, but we will get to that at the end of Spring Dawning. Tanis is like, oh man, I hate this, but Raceland's right, so you need to stop Sturm. And Sturm's like, hell no, I refuse, not now.
Yeah, he's like, I said before, I will not rely on his protection. Not now. Farewell, Tanis. Before any of them could stop him, Sturm walked past Raceland towards Cyan Bloodbane. The great dragon's head wove back and forth in eager anticipation of his first challenge to his power since he had conquered Sylvanesti.
So yeah, actually it might well be Cyan Bloodbane actually in the dream, because he's controlling it, he's in charge of it, and he's just watching these people come at him. He's certainly not scared.
Sturm tries to fight, and it doesn't work.
Well, here's the thing that's important. It's like, you hear the clarion call of the trumpet, Sturm answers the trumpet's cry. You hear the second time, and it's no longer sweet and pure, it's harsh and still. Then you hear it a third time. It sounds terrible and evil. The horn has been twisting since it's going. Like, since it started clarion and clear, now it's just messed up. And he's like sitting there, and he's staring at the dragon, and he's like horrified. Where's Tanis? Tanis can't find him. He can't find him. He's repeating the code of the knights, my honor is my life. But the words sound hollow and meaningless. He wasn't a knight. What did the code mean to him anyways? He'd been living a lie. There is Sturm's fear that he is just a imposter. His sword arm wavers and drops. It falls from his hand. He sinks to his knees. And with one swipe of his shining talon, Cyan Bloodbane ends Sturm's life, impaling the knight's body on a blood-stained claw. Disdainfully, he shakes the wretched human to the floor, while draconians sweep, shrieking towards the knight's still living body, intent on hacking it to pieces. But then Laurana shows up.
Yeah.
And Laurana is like a bright figure standing silver in the moonlight, holding his sword and saying, touch him and you will die. Right? Like, suddenly we're getting her foreshadowing of the future. Tan is like, oh no, this is going to go bad. But she fights and, the draconians stab her and kill her. The half-elf is sobbing in his frenzy, feeling himself to sink into madness. And he's got the magical sword of Kithkanon in his hand, which has come back to him.
Yeah, which he doesn't have.
Yeah, it's come back to him. It's with his buddies over there. And he rushes to the dragon, and there's Raceland blocking the path.
Well, and Kidiar also dies, right?
Oh, yeah. He turns around and watches Kit die, too. So, yeah, Kit dies, Laurana dies, Sturm goes into a frenzy, and then he sees Raceland, and he falls to the floor, knowing his death is fixed, and then he hears the maid chanting. Strange and powerful words.
He heard the dragon roar in rage. The two were battling, but Tanis didn't care. With eyes closed fast, he blotted out the sounds around him, blotted out life. Only one thing remained real, the golden ring he held tightly in his hand. Suddenly, Tanis became acutely conscious of the ring pressing into his palm. The metal was cool, its edges rough. He could feel the golden twisted ivy leaves bite into his flesh. Tanis closed his hand, squeezing the ring. The gold bit into his flesh, bit deeply, pain, real pain. I am dreaming.
And then
Tanis opened his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Solinari's silver moonlight flooded the tower, mingled with the red beams of Lunatari. He was lying on a cold marble floor. His hand was clasped tightly, so tightly that pain had wakened him. Pain, the ring, the dream. Remembering the dream, Tanis sat up in terror and looked around, but the hall was empty except for one other person. Raceland slumped against a wall, coughing. The half-elf staggered to his feet and walked shakily toward Raceland. As he drew nearer, he could see blood on the mage's lip. The blood gleamed red in Lunatari's light, as red as the robes that covered Raceland's frail, shivering body.
Mm-hmm.
The dream. Tanis opened his hand. It was empty. And that's how chapter 10 ends.
Wow. God, what a good set of chapters, man. This is just real psychological trauma up and down the street. Every single one of these heroes is flawed. Every one of their flaws is laid bare for everybody to see.
Yeah, we learn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
We learn a lot about each character, what holds them up. We get a little preview of Kiriara, who's going to be popping into our story soon enough.
Yeah.
Laurana is barely in here. And that's what I found. We only get the tiniest. We never see the point of view from Laurana as we have with all the other characters here, except for Kit and Laurana.
No.
We kind of had an internal view of them.
We never get a POV of Sturm. Every time Sturm shows up, it's always in the only POV of a character we'd get from the other half.
We get the POV of Sturm when he dies.
Oh, I guess we do get that. We do get that when he's hearing that.
We get it with Riverwind when he dies.
So yeah, you're right. We don't get Laurana and Kit are the only ones we don't really get.
We get them from Tanis's point of view.
Yeah.
But I think that's setting up the triangle that this book deals with Tanis and those two. I think it's unfortunately they don't get to be characters yet in their own right. They're still in the orbit of Tanis dealing with his characterization.
Yeah.
Though we see hints of it. Laurana steps up to a dragon, no hesitation, overcoming dragon fear, and dies fighting. You said that's a preview for the reader that she's going to be a great warrior.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't see it from her own point of view. And we only see Kit from Tanis's point of view, where she's like, I knew Raistlin was going to do this to Caramon eventually.
Yeah. I missed that point before, but that is such an important moment right there of Kit basically sitting there saying, like, I knew this would happen. But then also just feeling like the mildest amount of sadness for Caramon, her younger brother. And she's like, yeah, man, sucks.
Well, look at the dichotomy between the two. Seeing as that's a big focus is going to be, is look how Laurana dealt with Sturm's death, who is just someone she's recently met. And look how Kit dealt with her own family's death. I think we're highlighting differences here that are important for the reader to understand.
Yeah. It's a selfishness versus selflessness. It's like the internal versus the external, right? But I think the most salient point is, again, Caramon's codependency is laid bare. Raistlin's selfishness is laid bare. Tasselhoff's concern for his friends. Flint's, age. We should pay attention to these things as they come up later in the story. And they're certainly going to come up more.
I think we should point them out when and if I notice them, or you already know them, but when they come up, we can point back to remember in the dream? Remember in...
Some of these things are going to be resolved in this book alone, and it's going to be fascinating. But with that, though, that is the end of this chapter of Dragons of Winter Night. And we're about to move into chapter 11, The Dream Ends, The Nightmare Begins. Oh, what a title! What a title! Oh, I love this. We are getting into the fun part of the book, man. I really, really enjoy this. Winter Night's a fantastic story. But with that, I think we're going to call it a day here. This has been the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. I've been Shivam. That's been my friend John. You can catch us on the Blue Skies. I'm shivam.bluesky, whatever.
And I'm False Logic at bluesky.social.
Yeah. We'd also like to, once again, say we have a Patreon at patreon.com/Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. And we'd like to shout out two of our $5 patrons, Alexander Lewis and Nicholas Campo. And thank you all so much for your support. We really genuinely appreciate it. And honestly, we appreciate you guys for sticking with us for this year and a half or whatever it's been. Doing this show is fantastic, and we really, really enjoy it. Looking forward to seeing you guys next month.
Have a great one, everyone.
It's complicated.
Okay.